Please welcome KLM Royal Dutch Airlines CEO Pieter Elbers in conversation with Skift Airline Weekly editor Madhu Unnikrishnan.
Thank you, Pieter Elbers. Thank you so much for joining us today and for the time. I wanted to get right into it and just ask you about the state of the recovery for KLM and whether you've started to see an uptick in bookings. In other words, what is the status right now of the recovery or the beginnings of the recovery for KLM?
Yeah, well, we have gone through I guess, like probably every airline, a sort of roller coaster in the last 3 months. And during March, we went from a full production level down to almost zero in April. We never stopped flying. Actually, we continued our operation in April. We continued our operation in May, mostly for cargo, but even lots of repatriation flights for Dutch and European citizens from all over the world, which we brought back here. In fact, we do see that as from June, we see the first signs of recovery. And this month, we're operating roughly half of our European network in terms of destinations, only 15% in terms of capacity. And we're stepping that up in the months July and August to come. And we do see some first green shoots here in the European network. Long haul is still a bit challenging, but European network, we do see some uptick of demand. And in order to be ready for that, our strategy and my belief is really that we should build our network with less capacity, significantly less capacity than we had before.
Great. You mentioned Europe, and we're hearing a lot about this as a summary of recovery for Europe, particularly for holiday tourism. Are you starting to see the more intra-European travel now that sort of the Schengen area is in the process of reopening its borders?
Yeah. I think that would be fair to say. There's still a lot of uncertainty for consumers. What will exactly happen with the borders? What will exactly happen with the rules and regulation in countries like Italy, Spain, and Greece? I think in general, we see a gradual relaxation of all these rules, and with that, a more demand. And we have, as I mentioned, we have reintroduced some of our flying to these places. We've started up our low-cost subsidiary Transavia as well, starting now to fly into Spain, Portugal, into Greece, and we do really see some momentum in the market now.
So, to sort of drill down a little bit on that last point, are you seeing bookings mainly to sort of sun destinations in Greece, Spain, Italy, or from the north of Europe, or where are you seeing the trends right now?
Well, of course, for us as KLM, we do have a solid position here in the Netherlands, and clearly that's helping us and also reaching out to our customers. We see some other neighboring countries also starting to have the first bookings coming in. Countries like Belgium and Germany started to opening up, and the same would go for the northern part of Europe. But again, the absolute numbers are still very limited compared to where we come from. But on a positive note, if I compare the situation today to that of 2 weeks ago, there's significantly more dynamics in the markets than there was before.
And you said you were operating about 15% of your capacity. Is that right?
Yeah, that's now in the month of June on the European network. And the long haul network, it's a bit more. We operate quite a lot of flights which are sort of wide body aircraft for cargo only, given all the travel restrictions we do have in place. I think the proof of the pudding is going to be the next month of July, where we're adding more destinations to our network. We'll be back to roughly 80% in terms of destination offering, and in August almost completely the destination offering on the European platform, with roughly half of that in terms of capacity.
What percentage full are you seeing the aircraft?
Well, today, of course, they're not so full, but again, that's a bit the challenge today. We're still in the middle of June, and our capacity is still, as I mentioned, around 15%, with load factors which are significantly lower than we used to operate them. And planes are, generally speaking, half full, and the travel patterns are still very erratic. You may have flights where everyone shows up, and there's flights where you suddenly have no-show percentages which are much higher than usual. I expect that this very erratic pattern, as we go forward, will also smoothen out. Again, the change is really, proof of the pudding is going to be the month of July.
What are you seeing for autumn now?
Well, it's probably a little bit too early to see anything. People are withholding their bookings, but my belief and my sort of strategy to that would be, if we are able to create some momentum in the intra-European travel for holiday makers, then probably more on the mid and small size enterprises, we may see some return of business into fall. That would be a sort of best case scenario. Some of the large corporates may take longer, and they are probably also a bit more geared to some of the long haul business, but especially for some of the medium and small enterprises in Europe, where if the situation in Europe will further improve, if these businesses are coming back, with some of the economic activity coming back after the summer, and if the summer travels did not create new issues or outbreaks or travel bans, in a more optimistic scenario, we could see some of that returning as business travelers in the second half of the year.
Okay, well, that actually was my next question, where you're seeing corporate demand. Right now, I assume that a lot of the bookings you're seeing are for leisure holiday makers, correct?
Yeah, today the focus is on that. A lot of companies, large companies, have very strict rules and regulations when it comes to travel. They have introduced their own travel bans, if you wish, in terms of long haul travel. I think many of the restrictions still in place in many countries, and travel between the US and Europe is still rather limited. But again, I think the small and medium enterprises may lead to recovery on that field as well.
Well, a lot of the return of demand and the recovery for air travel will be based on traveler sentiment and confidence. When you talk to passengers, what are you hearing in that regard? Whether they are confident to fly? That's the first part of my question. The second is, what steps is KLM taking to sort of make the travel experience safer from a public health point of view in the airport and on board?
Yeah, I think we've gone through a situation both in our societies as well as for our businesses with so much insecurity at what to do. Should we stay inside? Should we keep 1 meter distance, or 1.5 meters, or 2 meters? And probably every country has introduced its own set of rules and regulations, which for the airline industry in particular, we need a more unified set of rules and a more unified set of regulations. With that, I'm glad, and also the initiatives IATA is taking in order to come to a much more harmonized set of rules, and even within the European landscape, we need that set of rules. And with all these different measures, I think there's some confusion with customers what to believe and what not to believe, and what to do and what not to do. And if I fly from Spain to the Netherlands or the other way around, what are the exact rules country by country? So I think for us, we have a couple of jobs to do as an airline, actually. Most important one is to restore that confidence with our travelers. So at KLM, that was your second question, we have taken quite a few initiatives in terms of communication, in terms of awareness towards our customers. The HEPA filters are something many people were not aware. So we've introduced a video, we're sharing that broadly on social media and towards our customers, tell them what exactly are we doing. We have introduced a whole set of measures on board in line with the EASA sort of guidelines in terms of minimized contacts with crews, and making sure that we have the mouth masks introduced on board of the aircraft. So all these rules we have in place, that should give a better level of comfort, if you wish, or better confidence for our travelers to board the aircraft again. The second part is flexibility in terms of booking and tickets, and I think airlines, like other business, have traditionally a whole set of rules and regulations when it comes to rebooking and so on and so forth. And we probably need for a longer time a more flexible and dynamic approach to that than we had before. So confidence on the one hand side, flexibility on the other hand side, and reassurance in doing so. And I think that's what customers need, and that's precisely what we have introduced.
Right. Well, when you talk to passengers as they contemplate the summer holiday, do you get the sense that there's more nervousness or let's say confusion about flying or about the experience on the ground, like in their hotel rooms or at the destination?
What I gather, it's probably both. And why on board of the aircraft social distancing is not only economically not possible, but also all the measures which are there, like the filters, like the masks, are there precisely in order to deal with that. I think we have a job to do in terms of communication and explaining towards our customers. By doing that, our take is that level of confidence will increase. And then for customers at airports, it's not so much different than being at an airport or being in other public areas like shopping malls and so on and so forth. Then there's of course some insecurity on how will the situation be in some of these countries, and again within Europe, people feel probably a little bit more reassured that if something goes wrong, they can go back home more easily rather than taking a long haul flight.
Right. Now I wanted to talk a little bit about the airline industry in particular. This is a season unlike any other. In the European landscape, some of your competitors like Norwegian and SAS have dramatically scaled back their operations. Is it too early to say whether KLM is benefiting from that yet, or have you started to see some of the benefits of those passengers coming to KLM?
No, I would say a quick and short answer would be that's way too early. What we see today in the industry, as you rightfully point out, it's unprecedented. I recall when we had the European Ash Cloud back in 2010, decade ago. I was the chief of network planning back then, and we were impressed by what was it, 6 or 7 days that the airspace was closed and it was crisis, and we never had experienced it. Today it has been for like 2.5, 3 months that we were in this situation. So this is so unprecedented, and demand and travel has dropped to levels not seen before. That is way too early to give any indication who's benefiting from what capacity reduction.
Delta's CEO Ed Bastian has said many times in the recent past, especially in the earnings call and just at other appearances, that he believes passengers will pay for a more premium experience. That Delta will focus on that market. Is this a philosophy that KLM is thinking of going forward to sort of focus on the more premium end of the market?
Well, this is not an earnings call but if I see where KLM has developed before COVID and what our strategy was in the past couple of years, when we started with the new team at KLM in 2014, our strategy and our philosophy really was to make sure that our customers have a memorable experience and that they are ready and willing to pay a bit more for having that memorable experience. So we have invested in that, in our hardware, in our software, in our people, in all the sort of touch points and in the steps that consumers are taking, and it has paid off. We've dramatically improved our results. Our net promoter score went up, and the initiative we took on Fly Responsibly also got massive spin-off and positive remarks. So if we see this as an enormous shock to demand, as an enormous shock to economies, our strategy, I guess, in the long run would be to come back to the one we had before, making sure that our customers have a memorable experience and are ready to pay for that. And probably in the near term, more emphasis is going to be given on health and flexibility and confidence to travel. But over a longer period of time, it will come back, I guess, to where we left it before.
Right. And, a big part of KLM's business is long haul.
Yeah.
That many analysts, many other your peers have said it will take 2 to 3 years to recover. Is this aligning with your thinking? Like when do you think you'll start to see some of the demand in long haul traffic that we had in December of 2019 return? When will we see those levels?
Well, and we when we issued our first quarter earnings at the Air France KLM level, we gave an indication which is 2023-ish time frame of returning to the pre-COVID levels. That was the announcements we made early May. I don't see any sort of change to that at this point in time. So I would like to stick to that sort of prediction where it comes back, and whatever we see happening now in the market, a quicker recovery on the European side is in fact confirming that that time frame we said before.
Great. Now, speaking of long haul, I want to refer back to something you said earlier about cargo being a brighter spot. I'm not going to just say brighter spot during this time. But IATA also has said there's been a capacity crunch for cargo because so few passenger flights are flying and they're not carrying cargo in their bellies. How has KLM adapted for that market with fewer passenger flights?
Well, KLM is having a long tradition in cargo, and given the size and the scope of our network, we do operate some 65 long haul aircraft. And until today, we are the only carrier still flying around with 747 combi aircraft. And in fact, we decided to retire these aircraft early March when the crisis started. But then when the whole thing developed, and there was so much demand, and especially in terms of getting medical stuff back to the Netherlands and back to Europe, we reintroduced, in fact, the 3 combis we had. So we're operating quite a large network today, and we operate to roughly half of our existing network as cargo-only flights. So we do have a whole range of 777s and 787s flying around, particularly for cargo, and not only in the bellies, but even on the seats, in order to make sure that initially it was focused on healthcare, health materials. Now the scope is enlarged a little bit. Probably when we do see more passenger aircraft returning into the skies, that demand and capacity balance will be somewhat reinstated. But I'm very proud actually on the flexibility and the dynamics we had here, and teams doing that cargo. It at least generated some revenues.
I know it's hard to talk about opportunities now, but the landscape, the travel landscape, and the airline landscape is changing, and I just wanted to know what does KLM see any opportunities for a different path, or just for evolution, sort of in this that will come out on the other side of this crisis?
Yeah, well, I think that there's probably a couple of points which are there. Every previous crisis has led to further industry consolidation and trends, and I think we should see and that's more on the Air France KLM group level rather than on the KLM level. But how can we continue to be part of that dynamics? I think more if we focus on more generic issues. I think the whole topic around sustainability, we have launched the initiative last year, June, Fly Responsibly. The reactions have been overwhelmingly positive, and I think today, with so much pressure on what's happening into our societies, what are we doing to the planet, and even COVID has led to a lot of speculations on where does it come from and how did it arise, and is it not a new momentum? And I think we should use that new momentum in order to revitalize some of these initiatives, some of these actions we were doing. So that I would say after consolidation, that is 2. And I think 3, we do have a opportunity, if you wish, that to demonstrate again that aviation can be, and to my personal view should be a catalyst for rebuilding some of our economies. And the world has been a global marketplace, has been a global trading place. And I know there are some different views on that, but in general, it has lifted this globalization, lifted millions and millions of people out of poverty. And I believe that aviation could demonstrate again to be a catalyst for rebuilding societies and rebuilding economy. And I believe that if we formulate that well, we can and will be able to play that role.
Well, Pieter, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. And I look forward to the day when I can sit across from you and interview you in person.
Let's do that.